everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you the Pick a Stick Challenge for December 2021. Usually our Pick a Stick challenges are done as an art journal page, but today I'm doing a mixed media canvas. So the Pick a Stick Challenge has 6 steps that you need to use in order. There are 2 colors, and there's also 2 wild cards if you don't like one of the steps. You can do something before, after, in between, but you just need to do those 6 one-word prompt steps in order. They're randomly drawn with sticks. That's why it's called Pick a Stick. So the first prompt for this month was pour. Now that could be interpreted as pouring something on your page or your canvas. It could be interpreted as drawing a picture that is pouring out something. These are absolutely open to your interpretation of how you want to use it. There's no rules other than use the 6. So I decided to start with a 8x10 canvas that has an acrylic pour on it. This canvas was given to me a few years ago by Lori. Thank you, Lori. And it's been on my wall for a while, and I like to change things up. So I decided that since the color prompts had eggplant in them as one of the colors, which seems to be in the background of this pour, and the prompt was pour, I decided to start with it. So I already had my background done, and that was great. So thank you, Lori. Thank you very much, Lori. So I decided to move on to the second prompt, which was scratchy. And I knew that I needed a tree branch, and I wanted to have this lot of texture. So I used some golden molding paste and put it on with a spatula, and then I used a bamboo skewer to scratch texture into it for the prompt scratchy. And then I gave it as much a dry as I could. This was done during the live stream, which is an hour and a half long. So I couldn't set it aside to dry overnight like you would. That's what you should do. But instead, I heated it with the heat tool as much as I could, dried the surface, and the rest of it will dry eventually. It's just I needed to move on working. So I was talking about different types of tools you could use to scratch into your work. It's a great way to add texture. So then I didn't want it to be white. I wanted it to have some depth, so I painted it with black gesso and dried that. The next prompt was animal, and so I already knew, as you can tell, I made a branch. I probably should have made the branch a little bit lower, but I knew I was going to make an owl. I've been dreaming about owls for some reason, and I do see them here occasionally. We've even had them land on our fence in the back. And just sit there and look at us with their big owl eyes. But not recently, though. I don't know why. I just had, for the last few nights, I've had dreams about owls. So I don't know. I'm kind of weird like that. So I did want to draw one. This turns out to be kind of looking more like a baby owl, maybe. He turned out pretty fluffy. So I drew that on there with a white charcoal pencil just so that I could see my very basic drawing. And then I painted over it with white gesso because the background, the poured background, I think has been sprayed probably, and it's slick, it's shiny, and so these things that I'm putting on do need gesso to keep them down. Plus, I wanted to kind of blank out the background so that I would have a white surface to paint on when I start to do my acrylic painting on the owl. But before I do that, I'm going to move. Sorry about that, guys. I have coughs today. I'm gonna move on and do the rest of some more of the steps before I start doing my acrylic painting. So the next prompt was metallic, and I was thinking about this metal tape that's used. It's used for ducks. It's not duct tape as in like that tape that's branded duck. That's silver. It's aluminum tape that's used for duct work. Like if you attach one duct to another when you're doing HVAC, or maybe your dryer or something. It's used to seal those ducts together, I believe. That's my understanding of it. I'm not a contractor or anything, or an electrician or anything like that. So, but basically, what it is like sticky back tinfoil. So I stuck it to a piece of packaging cardboard from a cereal box and burnished it down really good. And then I cut a circle out with a die cut, and then I used one of those embossing folders that go with your die cutting machine to create some texture on it, because I wanted this canvas to be very textural. Then I took some black gesso and I knocked back some of the shininess of this metallic piece, made it more antique-y by adding the black gesso because it was shiny. And then I also added a little bit of color with a few different alcohol inks. The first one was an alchemy, so it has that sparkly mica in it. And then the other ones are just regular. I think all of them that I used were Ranger brand alcohol ink. But it's fun to do alcohol on metallic pieces because it still retains that kind of metallic-y feel and look to it, but it gives color. So that's a fun technique to do. You can make card backgrounds or, whatever you want with that type of thing. You can stick it down to a lighter weight paper than this if you wanted to, like a cardstock or something. I wanted something pretty strong that would hold the texture that I put on through the folder. You can also make texture on it by using a ball stylus and drawing onto it. You can put it on something squishy like a mouse pad and then just draw into it, and it creates texture as well. But I wanted something quick, so I used that embossing folder. The next prompt is tissue. Sometimes tissue can be used for so many things. And I mean, it's crazy how much things you can use tissue for in art. But sometimes if you want to put a stamped image on, but you're not exactly sure that you want to use the whole image, or that you can accurately place it, or that the surface that you're placing it on is going to accept ink, because remember, this is a sealed acrylic background. You can stamp what you want or draw what you want onto tissue and then collage it on. That being said, this did not work as well as I wanted it to because the background was already sealed. The tissue didn't melt into the background like it does on a paper surface that's absorbent. So I did have to do a little bit of color correction, because usually tissue will, once you put matte medium on it, it will almost become one with the surface that you're putting it on if it's a paper, right? If it's like a watercolor paper or a card or mixed media paper, whatever, it will really blend into the surface well. This time it ended up having a bit of a highlight around it from the excess tissue. Had I cut it out and made it very precisely fussy cut out, I wouldn't have had that problem. But I didn't want on the live stream to be cutting out stuff. So this worked out fine. I just had to do color correction with it because I could see the light edges. And you still can kind of see them, but they don't bother me anymore after I did what I did, which comes later. So this is the tissue step. So I have one more step left, and I'm going to do it later. Now I'm going to think about my owl guy and the colors. The colors are eggplant and amber. I already have some of that eggplant on the background, but not really the amber color. And I don't have a paint that's named amber. So I wanted to use my Dina Wakley paints today, the heavy bodies, because they're fun for acrylic painting. So I put cheddar and lemon together, and then I added just a touch of blue and dulled it a little bit to make it not quite as bright, because the cheddar and the lemon together were really bright. And I think it's pretty close to what the hex codes call amber, although, when it prints out, it might not be exactly the same as the hex code. So I started with the amber on my painting. And I also have some titanium white. I've also got some eggplant, which there is a color called eggplant in the Dina Wakley acrylic heavy body paint, which is a very red violet. So I would probably call it red violet as opposed to eggplant. But, they add fun colors like lemon and eggplant and coral and Sedona and ruby. All the designer colors have fun names. No matter what company you're getting them from, they've got fun names. So there's the eggplant. I'm using that to start my shaded areas of my acrylic painting. I've also got some of the pink. Can't remember what the name of that one is. I've got some teal and some of the cheddar, and I've got white. I think those are all the colors I used for now. So I'm just using a small flat brush, one that's flat on the end, to paint on feathers. And as I'm doing my colors, I'm thinking about shadow and highlight. So I know that there's going to be a shadow underneath the wings, even though they're folded. There's still going to be a shadow. There's going to be a shadow underneath the owl's bottom, and probably around the eyes and in, some areas of the face. So I'm using, instead of using black to shade in or something, I'm using color. So my darkest color, I know what other color I choose, is night. Night is a very dark blue, and it makes a beautiful color when you mix eggplant and night together. It makes a very deep dark purple, and that was my darkest color on my painting. And then the pinks and the eggplant are kind of the medium tones, and the teal. Then I go into the orange and the amber. The orange is called cheddar. I go into those colors, and then of course mixing in with white, titanium white, to get my very lightest highlight colors. So that's how I was thinking about it as I was painting on feathers, trying to think about making it look somewhat dimensional in that the the sides of the belly would be darker than lighter in the middle to make the belly look as if it's pooching out, like you do. So this is a whimsical owl. This is not realistic. There are no purple, pink, eggplant, cheddar owls out there that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe in fairyland there is, but here I don't think so. So it's just for fun. It's colorful, just for fun. So he has a little tail underneath, and that's going to be darker colors because it's the underside of the tail, although it does have some highlight with whites. I do my first layer, give it a little bit of a dry, and then I'm thinking about highlights now. That's step number 6. So I decided to highlight my tree and give the texture, the power to stand out a little bit more by adding some more metallic. So remember, we did metallic before. Now we're adding in some more metallic. The color is called Ancient, and it is a Dina Wakley color, and it's like a bronze, a deep bronze color. And that really brings out the texture, although I did add some more layers to that tree branch. Then I'm doing some detail work with a Pentel pocket brush. This is an India ink pen that has a brush, like a little synthetic brush on the end, so you can, you can do brush strokes like you do. And I had to change out the cartridge in the middle of the process. I could tell as I was working that the cartridge was empty. So I'm just using up the very last part that's on the brush, and then I'm going to switch it out. I like this brush because it's very easy to change the cartridge. And India ink is permanent. So there I am changing the cartridge out and then writing it off on my paper to get the ink flowing again a little bit. takes a second. You can't squeeze it. It's a hard pen, so you can't like squeeze it to force it to come out. You just have to keep writing with it until it starts to flow. So I'm adding details around everything. Lots of illustrative details in my owl, around my leaves, just everywhere with the black. I wished that this pen came in dark blue. I would have used that. I would have used Payne's Gray or, a dark color like night if it came in this pen. I love this pen. I wish it came in more colors. That's all I'm saying. There's lots of colors of India ink out there. You could, hey, Pentel, you could make it in other colors. I do have a brown and a gray brush pen that is from Pentel, but they are water-based ink. And I would like to have a permanent ink. Someday I'm going to try to figure out if I can make it myself. But yeah, it would be cool. So here is where I'm thinking about color correction around the leaves. I can see the tissue, it's bothering me. So I mixed up a little bit of night with eggplant to make a dark purple color. And I'm going around those leaves and then using my baby wipe to kind of blend out the color so that it's not a harsh line. As much as I can. It's not exactly the color of the background. I also, later on, after the camera's off, I go around the outside of the owl with that same darker purple, but it's not on the camera. So now I'm just adding more highlights with some of that metallic into the owl because now the moon is metallic, the tree branch is metallic, but the owl is not. So more highlighting, plus I'm also using a little bit of white as I'm going in some places. One detail that you'll see in the photos at the end that you will not see me doing because I did it after the camera was off is I used a metallic gel pen to create some swirl shapes on the leaves. The reason I did that is because the moon has those swirly shapes in it, and I thought it needed to be somewhere else in the composition. So I drew them on with like a metallic gel pen after everything was dry before I sprayed it. I did spray this with 3 coats of acrylic gloss sealer, and that makes all the different sheens that we have on here the same because there is some that's very matte, some that's shiny, and some that's in between, and so it looked kind of weird. So being able to seal it up at the end really made a difference. I hope you've enjoyed this Pick-a-Stick challenge and this canvas. If you have, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment or a question, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your notification bells. All those things are really awesome for helping me out on my channel. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.